Results, a very strong first quarter out of Goldman Sachs, and a lot of that was propelled by investment banking and capital markets activity. How likely is it that this performance is repeated in the second half of the year, and what does the pipeline look like right now?
Well, the pipeline is strong. I mean, as I said on our earnings call, notwithstanding quite considerable performance in terms of revenue production, we nonetheless saw record backlog for our business broadly, which obviously speaks to a more positive forward. It's always hard to know what the market will offer you, and we are obviously a function of market circumstances. But I think the confidence we have around our business and the forward for performance is itself very much a function of our client relationships and the fact that over a number of recent quarters, we have picked up considerable market share, both in investment banking and equally in our global markets or trading businesses. And so my sense is that whatever the market presents by way of kind of a broader industry opportunity, we've now positioned ourselves to take our fair share in the context of wallet share and market share across those businesses.
One segment of the market that has did extremely well up until mid-March was SPACs, and it is a part of the market that, of course, Goldman were very actively involved in. But since then, we've seen somewhat of a dip in terms of SPACs performance and overall activity. How do you view this dip?
Well, I would say, in our business, SPACs were prominent, but by no means, a dominant contributor to our equity underwriting business or to our merger business. It was important, but certainly not dominant. I think the market has slowed in terms of its reception. Having said that, I think SPACs, as we have noted before, are but another avenue by which companies can find themselves to the public markets. There are issues in and around SPACs that we have cautioned on, including nature and level and breadth of disclosure and transparency, and obviously alignment. It is a newer product relative to other products by which companies have gone public. And so I think, time will, calibrate the level of disclosure and that alignment among parties. And I suspect we'll see SPACs continue on, again, as a useful avenue or tool for companies to come public.
In your last earnings call, you said that the effective tax rate for Goldman for the quarter was 18%, but that you do expect the tax rate under the future tax regime or current tax regime to go up to approximately 21%. Does that thinking still hold?
Well, I think, it's hard to know what the details of U.S. tax policy will ultimately be. Obviously, it's all, very much in flux and subject to sort of ongoing debate and negotiation in Washington. And obviously, there's an international component to that, to the extent that there's quite a bit of discussion around what the G-7 will do in terms of broad global taxation. All of that being, in motion makes it difficult to sort of forecast with precision where our tax rate will be. But I think the general direction that I indicated on the call was higher, not lower. And again, our tax rate is also very much a function of the global nature of our business. So it depends on where revenues are generated, in what jurisdictions, subject to, what particular tax rate. But I think the guidance we gave, remains accurate, which is it will be higher than what it has been in the past, and we'll need to leave it to some time before we know that with precision.
Well, you talk about the global nature of your business, and we had this milestone breakthrough over the weekend with G7 finance ministers agreeing in principle on a minimum corporation tax rate of 15%. How are you thinking about this development?
Well, I think it's an interesting development. If anything, it signals a level of cooperation among the G7. Having said that, even if you look at, some of the reactions coming out of Washington, there is some opposition in Washington, particularly within the Republican Party, to what the Biden administration has otherwise agreed to in principle in and among the G7. So we'll need to see how, the politics in Washington play out as to whether or not this broader tax arrangement is one that, the United States will ultimately participate in. But, I think it was an interesting move and, perhaps a positive move to be read, if for no other reason than just in terms of a level of cooperation and engagement among the G7 leaders.